This may be the worst day of Donald Trump's entire presidency, and he's showing it as he visibly melts down both mentally and physically, screaming at reporters and completely falling apart. No wonder MAGA has turned against him. In the House, in the Senate, and across the country. His cabinet is in chaos, and so is he. That's why Trump snapped when confronted with the body cam footage of the ICE thug who murdered Renee Good. His reaction is going to haunt him. We're going to break it all down. But before we get into Trump's unhinged response and everything else he yelled about just moments ago, let's start with something ridiculous he did earlier today. Trying to comfort himself with a strange little fashion display for reasons nobody understands. If you want more coverage like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It really helps support our work exposing this violent administration.
I'm having a hard time seeing here. I see the American flag lapel pin. What is the other lapel pin on?
Somebody gave me this. You know what that is? That's called a happy Trump. And considering the fact that I'm never happy, I'm never satisfied. I will never be satisfied until we make America great again, but we're getting pretty close, I'll tell you what. This is called a happy Trump. Somebody gave it to me, I put it on.
We already covered Donald Trump abruptly stopping his press conference and meeting with wealthy oil executives, people who apparently aren't rich enough yet and just need to be even greedier, so he could wander off to admire a ballroom that doesn't even exist. A real moment of mental collapse there. But on top of that, wearing a pin of himself while Americans can't afford groceries, while he's surrounded by billionaire oil executives preparing to exploit Venezuela for their own profit using our tax dollars, is just unbelievable. That doesn't scream man of the people to me, but nothing Trump or his vice president has done ever has. And then came the worst part. Trump's reaction not only to the footage released today, but also to what J.D. Vance said about it. Before we get to Trump's meltdown, let's look at what Tim Miller had to say about Vance and his comments.
Yeah. And it's such an inverse of like the traditional vice presidential role, you know, where a lot of times the vice president gets sent out to go to funerals and to comfort, you know, and Joe Biden was like the eulogizer in chief, or the vice eulogizer in chief during the Obama administration at times. He did so many eulogies. And I remember, I grew up by Columbine. I remember Al Gore coming out when Clinton was president then. And Vance, on the other hand, rather than being like playing the role of comforter, he is playing the role of troll. Like they've dispatched him to be the person that wins the argument and trolls and gets under the skin of the political opponents and attacks the media, because they're not interested in comforting the country or trying to dampen tensions. They want to escalate tensions. That's what they want. They want to, Rev Al was talking about the discipline we've seen from protesters, and thank God, and good on them, because they want to incite violence from the protesters so they can crack down more and take more state power. And so I guess, I don't know this, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I guess they've employed J.D. Vance and said, well, this person has a special skill. He's extremely off-putting and condescending and nasty, and we can send him out and try to make our opponents more irate and have him call them names, you know, while he wags his finger at them. It's an extremely unappealing, but I think that it is serving a purpose for in some senses, and I think it's also serving a purpose in supporting their base, who they want, you know, to feel like their, you know, crazy arguments are being validated.
I wanted to play what Tim had to say because, honestly, I can only come up with so many words for J.D. Vance that won't get this video taken down. He truly is a reprehensible human being. Nobody likes him, not even he likes himself. And that's not going to change. But when Donald Trump was asked about the comments his vice president made about Renee Good, what Trump said wasn't surprising, but it will end him. I really believe Donald Trump and J.D. Vance don't understand where we are right now, the turning point we've reached. People now see this administration as one that wants to kill us in cold blood and then say they have every right to do it. That's the line that's finally been crossed. It should have happened long ago, but now this is only going to make it worse. Trump's response to the footage and to Vance's comments made that clearer than ever.
In Minnesota, the vice president yesterday suggested that Renee Good, who was killed by this ICE officer, was part of a broad left-wing network. What has your team told you about this broad left-wing network? Who is in charge of it? Who's part of it? What's it called?
Well, I haven't seen the vice president's statement, but he's generally very accurate. I hate to say, look, I watched that yesterday, and there were a lot of different forms to it. But there was a woman screaming, "Shame, shame, shame, shame." She was a agitator, probably a paid agitator, but in my opinion, she was an agitator, a very high-level agitator, so professional. She wouldn't stop screaming. I said, this isn't a normal situation. This is a professional troublemaker, because you heard it and I had it. Now, I will say this, the news sort of turned her down, turned her off, because you're trying to watch. She was so loud and so crazy and just not normal. When somebody sees something like that, they don't go screaming and the same words. So I guess you could say professional, but I didn't think she did a very good job. You have agitators, and we will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement. Yeah.
The idea that she was some kind of paid agitator is absolutely ridiculous, especially when Elon Musk was literally cutting million-dollar checks in Pennsylvania to help buy and steal an election for you, then turned around and did the same thing in Wisconsin, where Trump's preferred candidate still got blown out. So don't start lecturing anyone about who's getting paid and who isn't. It's absurd. A woman simply existing in her car with stuffed animals in her glove compartment on her way to pick up her child is not a paid agitator. That was an innocent person whose life was stolen by Donald Trump's ghouls. Her life was taken from her for simply existing. We all saw the footage. We saw what happened. "You're a good dude. I'm not mad at you," were her last words. And now, Donald Trump is calling her a paid agitator, a terrorist, a radical left-wing threat. He's determined to destroy the name of an innocent woman. But that's not the only thing he's obsessing over, because along with his meltdown, Trump is finally facing some pushback on what he considers the most important thing his administration is doing. It's not about costs. It's definitely not about keeping anyone safe. It's about Donald Trump's ballroom. And here's what he had to say to the press about it.
Yesterday at the National Capital Planning Commission, there were some concerns that this 89,000 square foot structure, same height as this building, is going to dwarf it and overwhelm it. Do you worry about that?
They had a great meeting yesterday, a really great meeting, and people love it. They love the ballroom. We need it. If we would have had the ballroom today, we could have had all of the oil companies there. We don't have the space. So they've needed it for a long time. They've needed the larger building. And this ballroom will be the best anywhere in the world. There'll be nothing to compete with.
Everybody wants the ballroom. Everybody wants the ballroom, he kept saying. It's great. I'm glad everyone wants the ballroom. I'm really thrilled that everyone wants the ballroom. We're going to have the ballroom. And all the oil executives in the room probably would have been even happier out in that big imaginary ballroom, hoping they weren't cramped in there. Because, of course, no one wants a moment's discomfort when you're a billionaire oil executive. That's man of the people, folks, right there. Meanwhile, thankfully, we still have real leaders fighting back against this fascist administration. Leaders who speak with compassion, intelligence, and vision. One of them just spoke out in a way we all need to hear right now, especially about ICE, because he isn't letting any of this slide. That is the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and you're going to want to hear what he had to say about ICE.
What is your response to that from Kristi Noem?
It's hard to truly make sense of that statement. All I can tell you is that here in New York City, we know that it's possible to be a New Yorker, to be an American, and also to be an immigrant. I'm one of the examples of all three of those things in one. And yet what we have seen time and again is an attempt to have cities and states give up immigrants to a federal administration's attempt to fulfill its pledge to create the single largest deportation force in American history. And as the mayor of New York City, I'm going to stand up for everyone who calls the city their home, and I'm going to do so while following following the laws we have in the city, laws which include sanctuary city policies that prohibit ICE agents from entering into New York City schools or properties unless they can actually provide a judicial warrant signed by a judge.
One of the reasons I was really looking forward to talking to you today, I mean, you never hold back, and I always appreciate that, is that in this moment of so much chaos and darkness in Washington, your announcement today was really a reminder that government can do good for the people, that if you have the will, if you have optimism about what is possible, that things can happen, people's lives can be made better. And this announcement today from you and Governor Hochul, I should just note, puts New York City on track to become the first city in the country to provide free universal child care, which is incredibly significant. Again, you're on day 8. How did you make this happen?
You know, I think this comes from many, many conversations that I've had with the governor and that our teams have had, all about fulfilling the commitment we have made of transforming the most expensive city in the United States into one that's affordable. But frankly, this day is a result not just of Governor Hochul and myself, but frankly a result of New Yorkers who knocked on more than 1 million doors, who made more than 1 million phone calls, all in the hopes of winning the city that they deserved. And today's announcement, where the governor committed $1.21 billion to taking the first steps to establishing universal child care here in New York City, it's a commitment that will provide universal child care for every 3-year-old and start to provide universal child care for every 2-year-old in New York City. And that means we will be taking off what has come to be a $22,500 a year expense off the backs of working families. And that's because working people believed in the city they could have as opposed to the one that they lived in.
One of the very few bright spots this year, and it hasn't even been a full year of Donald Trump being president, has been Zohran Mamdani, and we desperately need a fighter like him right now. We're going to keep lifting him up. As many of you know, I went to the inauguration and absolutely froze out there. Actually, let me correct that. And if you want to support that fight and all these rants that come with it, stick with us. There were a lot of rants today, and I appreciate you all for hanging in, even when things get a little wild. That's why I wanted you to hear from Zohran, because honestly, he organizes his thoughts better than I do sometimes. We're going to keep relying on him, maybe more than just every once in a while. And if you want to support what we're doing, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and if you stayed till the end, leave a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.